What's up, you fat patella fire ants? It's me. It's David. We're back. Grant will be here after the intro. Relax. This is a big one. We're back from the holidays, and this is the last episode of Psycho season. Do not fear. We will be back next week with the post show. But this is a big one. We talk about the finale of Chainsaw Man, My Hero Academia, Season 6, Episode 13, Spy Family finale of Season 1 is out. There's a ton of news to discuss. I think we go on some potentially Star Wars-related tangents, and amidst other stuff, we talk about To Your Eternity. Grant is finally watching Andor, so he gives his impressions on that. And then we get into a small argument about Knives Out, Glass Onion before we finish on the Q&A, which you can ask us questions on our Instagram at Part-Time Otaku Podcast. Hit us up there. I think that's about all the housekeeping we can do for now. Enjoy.
Psycho Season 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, hey there, Grant.
Hey, Dave.
How you doing there, you fine poultry gentleman?
I'm doing quite well.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
Okay, man, we made it. This is it. This is like, I don't want to say it's the big one, but and it's not the end. It's more like we've reached the end of this particular road.
We set a goal, and we have come to the end of, I guess, the goal is complete. We have began and ended Psycho Season.
This is it. We're going to talk Chainsaw Man finale, Spy Family finale, some other fun stuff. But we're not going anywhere. In fact, we have two things to tell you about up top. Number one, the post-show is returning. The Q&A will probably remain, but if you've listened to the podcast before Psycho Season, it's not, altogether that much different. It's a little bit less regimented. So, we're just going to generally talk about what we watch week to week instead of, the very same kind of, specific 6 shows we cover week to week.
Less hyper-focused on the specific season, yeah.
But that's good for you if you're listening, too. If there's a movie you think we should watch or cover, or if there's, a one-off anime, or just something you think that we would be into based off the stuff we cover, please send us your recommendations. The post-show is the time for us to watch random stuff.
Yep.
We will also be covering, some shows week to week. The winter season looks pretty absurd.
Some pretty big, must-watches that, returning shows that we're fans of, and some newer projects that are really, really sticking out. So
to name a few, I can't commit to, we don't know if we'll cover them week to week. I bet a few of these we will. Vinland Saga Season 2 is going to be big.
Book it in. That's going to be week to week for
sure. Tokyo Revengers is coming back. Nier Automata is premiering, video game anime. We've had a lot to say on that recently. Trigun's getting a remake. I watched the pilot of the last one, so that should be interesting.
Yeah, so did I.
That Revenger show you mentioned.
Yeah.
Looks pretty intense. And another big one is, or two last big ones, are the Last of Us HBO adaptation is coming out on January 15th. So I have to imagine we're going to check that out. And then Bad Batch Season 2. I imagine you'll tune into that.
For sure. Week to week. I had no idea. I completely snuck on me. It comes out tomorrow. So when you're listening, it's out. When everyone's listening, it is out. Yeah.
And one more piece of housekeeping before we move on to the finale of Chainsaw Man. Later this week, 2 days after you listen to this episode, we're going to put out our top 5 anime of the year episode. Grant and I did a whole podcast on our individual top 5s. I think in years past they have overlapped quite a bit. Mm-hmm. They did not at all this year.
No, it was a really fun podcast.
Yeah, so that was super fun. We have honorable mentions, and we talk about some of our favorite soundtracks and moments and stuff. So that was a really fun listen. So definitely check that out when it drops. But without further ado, I think we can move on. We should start heavy, right?
Yeah, the heaviest heavy.
Okay, Chainsaw Man, episode 12. Grant, what did you think of the finale?
I think it was a pretty good finale.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's interesting because, you and I always say pilots are hard, finales are hard, right? There's the expectation that there is going to be a follow-up season and all this and that. So, the show is so big, it would be shocking if it didn't continue, right? So, as viewers, we're kind of like, well, like, you know, how are they going to end it? How are they going to tease? And I think it's one of the best tease, like usages of a tease. The way they kind of came in and out of the ending, you know, like the ending track, and you know, the characters, it felt a little more canonical, like them kind of socializing, not so much like an art piece ending. And then it came back into Denji dreaming, and there's this door, and the internet's, you know, exploding over this door. I guess it's a big deal. So, you know, it was fun. There was a lot of highs and lows, which I think, you know, Chainsaw Man does very well. And a lot more a lot more questions, and I think probably one of my favorite moments of the season. Not an explosive moment by any means, but there's just these little moments that aren't action related, or even like thoughty. You know how, like, you know, Himeno and Makima and Aki, they bring like all this like kind of savantness to their conversations sometimes, and it wasn't even that. It's classic Denji being Denji. So we'll get into all that. But what do you think?
I really liked it. I think, like, Denji, it's really interesting because I haven't really felt this way before. Like, I'm sure Jujutsu Kaisen parallels or similarities may come up this episode, as they kind of have throughout season 1 of Chainsaw Man. But, like, you know, the cast, the main 3 are kind of similar to the main 3 of Jujutsu or Jujutsu Kaisen. But I don't know, the more I watch it, the more I feel like...
That's not true.
Yeah, the more I feel really drawn to Aki's character.
Sure.
I don't know, there's just something so... I mean, I don't know. I keep catching myself using this cliche. I'm going to try and stop, but I'm not breaking any ground here by saying that I think Aki has he's much more of like kind of the heart of the show. He has like a lot of, you know, the deep, emotional, tender kind of, he's a tragic character, right? Again, I'm sure that's not a hot take, but, you know, like that whole fight he has with the ghost devil, and he's able to win because Himeno told him its weakness. And I think she was the one, or Aki was the one, who said to Denji, like, or said to at that dinner, don't reveal the details of your contract, right?
Yeah.
And of course she told him, right? I don't know. I loved that moment.
Yeah. Well, they've really done a good job just setting how deep I think the deep set love and companionship Aki and Himeno had, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, the kind of, not quite the fraying of it, but, you know, it's in a classic TV trope or movie trope is, you know, I think Aki kind of clicks into everything after she's gone. Like, I think he always valued her and you know, her and everything, but I think it really settled in on him, and you could see it like in his actions and, you know, the way he speaks for the rest of the episode after that. You know, that whether that's even a flashback or that's just like a, you know, because the life is being choked out of him, right? He could be hallucinating and all this and that. So it's interesting whether that actually happened or not, you know? So it's...
I really enjoyed something I just forgot I was going to say. Wow, I don't know if that's ever happened to me on the podcast. Grant, help. Okay, I'll just look at my notes. There may have not been any CGI cars, but there was a CGI train. So that helps.
And it wasn't half that bad.
No, it was completely fine.
Yeah. God, I forgot about the cars. Man, we should have gave
we should have had a
dishonorable mention for our best of the year episode for that car. Oh my god.
Okay, what else? The Katana Man. Okay, because there's kind of like 2 beats here with the episode. I feel like there's 2 separate endings. There's the scene of Denji and Aki kicking Katana Man in the nuts.
Performing the Requiem.
Like, that's a pretty Chainsaw Man thing to do.
Yeah, I like just that moment, you know, when you snicker to yourself and you just gotta like let it go. You're like, fucking right on, guys. Right at the end, you throw in a line like that. Yeah,
because this episode was taking itself kind of seriously.
Yeah,
and like they didn't let you forget these little things. You know what I mean? That the characters are still kind of silly, but it also felt kind of like right place, right time for them to do a funny gag like that.
Sure. Well, you know, they had set the precedent before, right? Of like, you know, Denji kicking Aki, you know, in his like little moment of payback earlier in the season, and you know, they kind of looped it back. But I just want to take a moment on Katana Man because you know, I think not the thing I've been struggling with this show is, but it's just kind of like a question that is I think, kind of background posed to the viewers is, like, who's really good and who's bad. Like, you know, like, they kind of have the setup of, like, they're devil hunters, they're there to, you know, kill, obviously, the evil devils that are causing all this harm, da-da-da. You know, but, like, whoever's running it. Like, you know, Makima, there's some questions about her actions and kind of who she is in the overall. There's some warnings given about her.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was episode 11, which I thought was a pretty stark moment.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the scene with... And that's the thing, too, like, Denji, like, you know, people are always, like, downtrodden on Denji, and people are kind of, like, holier than thou, with, like, or when they're around him.
Yeah.
And there's the moment where, you know, Denji and Katana Man meet up. Denji gets off the elevator, you know, he ditches power, which I think was hilarious. Like, just ignored her. She goes on her own. But Katana Man kind of, like, reaches out to Denji, and he's like, you know, like, these zombies, like, you know, were people before, you know, like, they were once humans, and there's just the whole line, and just kind of, like, his justification. Like, Katana Man comes from this line of, you know, evil Yakuza men. They cause so much harm on other people, and he sees none of that as wrong.
Yeah.
And he's, like, being all high and mighty and, like, calling out Denji for, like, being okay with killing zombies. And it was just this, like, like, it was, like, an aha golden moment for me. And of, like, oh my god, like, there's no one right path in this show. Like, they're all deranged. They're all completely, like, working by their own path. Like,
every character is very flawed.
Yeah. Right? Incredibly flawed. And I think Denji is just kind of flies in the face of that, and because he's the only honest one. Where he's
That's
like...
an interesting point.
You know, and I think that comes from him being so young, and also, like, the, you know, the shitty life that he's had so far. But he straight up says it. He's like, yeah, I'm in this for me. He's like, I don't want to give up these good meals. Like, I got a good thing going. They're zombies. And then, you know, the fight ensues, and it kind of moves on to the next thing. But
that's a really good point, man. And that's very astute of you. Like, you just made me think of early season. He kills the bat devil, and then what is it? Like the anteater devil fucking comes out, whatever that ugly thing was. There's like some line that, like, forgive me, has like some profanity in it, but he literally says everyone has all these ridiculous motivations, and I'm just out here, and I'm gonna
cop a feel
to cop a feel, and he says something like, I'm gonna prove my motivation of grabbing a tit is more important than you know what I mean? Like, he talks a bunch of shit, but he kind of says what you're saying. Like, at the end, like, he is at least out here, you know, he's maybe not the deepest guy, but he is one of the more honest ones. Very front facing. You know, there's something to that.
There's the expression of wearing your heart on your sleeve, and, you know, people take that in so many... I think people take that, like, as an emotional route, but I think he's just completely bare to everyone. Like, there's not... You know, you think back to the moments where the Yakuza guy pulls up, or the driver of the original zombie devil, or the old man or whatever, and, like, he gets him to eat the cigarette, and he's just like, yeah, like, okay, you know, like, just his view... It just kind of flies. It's just all about himself. Like, he sees a quick transaction on the spot. You know, everyone's kind of trying to convince themselves otherwise, and he's not. You know, it's I don't know. I think it just really stuck out to me.
His origins are very important. You know, shonen in general has a way. It's a bit of a bad habit of really racing past the origin story, right? Because they want to get to the fun, new, exciting stuff.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you rewatch that pilot, and you look at what Denji was giving up just to stay alive and work off that debt without really making much of a dent, of course he wants to protect what he has now. He gets to be a, quote, regular person. I mean, not really. I mean, regular in that he's, like, food safe, I guess. And he's kind of a teenager going through puberty, but, you know, with life and death stakes. So that's a little bit different. There was also a really great callback. Did you hear what he said? I think he says it to Katana Man. He says, a beast should never trust anything that a hunter says.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what his trainer, voiced by Nanami there. I forget Nanami's name in this episode. But I remember that callback was pretty dope. I did not see the snake girl killing herself.
I don't think she did kill herself.
Didn't she commit suicide via her snake? Or do you think she was, like, taken away by her snake?
Well, I think there's a line of, like, potentially due to her contract with the gun devil, it was like an involuntary suicide, like whether she knew it or not.
Oh, yes. You're completely right.
Because that was a very, like, oh shit, like, and it was like probably like the only blink and you miss it moment in the episode.
Actually, like, you know what? Not only are you right, but you know what that reminds me of?
What's that?
That reminds me of the any demons in Demon Slayer saying Kibutsuji's name.
Oh yes.
They're immediately it's his blood and it kills him off and whatnot. But maybe they had a contract with the Gun Devil, or they did. But
yeah, they did.
That's probably
yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's probably some condition that she triggered because she lost. That's interesting.
It's crazy how they'll just body like a villain like that. We have no, like I think her name is
no big bad
Solitary.
now.
Well, I think the Gun Devil is, but like we had this new foil or villain or potential like antagonist. She was an incredible threat, and this is kind of like I think we talked on the our top 10 or top 5 pod of like plot armor and how that kind of plays into these kind of stories, and we never even had the chance to get to know this character. And
I think her name was used once.
Yeah, so like it's just one of those things where they set up all the pretense to get to know this character. Like we have that first fight. They escape. We kind of run into them again. Potentially have a chance for some back and forth dialogue between the villain. We don't get any of that. It's like not interested in it. Where like it maybe just stresses the point of how like usable all these people are to the Gun Devil, because they're really setting up like how there's no greater evil in this world than the Gun Devil.
I feel like the reveal of the Gun Devil has to be a very big moment in the manga and in the show.
I would hope so. It's and so they also had that cool thing about like this one mission. They collected over 1.4 kilos of his flesh.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool, and it's now starting to move towards the Gun Devil. So it's like, oh yeah, we're
some
slowly working. It's going to be a tour road trip season. Next one.
Inching towards. I caught something. Well, I didn't catch something, but there's this twist at the end in the fight where Denji gets a chainsaw out of his leg.
Yeah,
and I realized through a screenshot that someone posted on Reddit that from the last episode, it was either the last episode or the one before it. It was either 10 or 11 when they're being trained by, what was his name, Grant? Power and Denji.
I don't know his actual name. Kenjiro there though.
Yeah, when they're being trained by him, and he leaves them like in a pile of their own blood, and they're all mutilated and exhausted from their quote training. That Denji's pants are all ripped up, like where his chainsaws would come out of.
Oh,
I was like, maybe he figured something out during training.
Damn.
But that was
because there is a line of like, I think because that was he said like you guys really did outdid yourselves this time.
Yeah.
And like he like gave him like the rest of the day off or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
I also thought it was interesting that we met all of Division 4, like the Sharkhead, the Angel Devil.
Yeah.
Is it a Spider Devil or a Spider Girl? I can't remember what her deal is.
I think so. Yeah, something similar.
But we met a bunch of new characters, and like in the penultimate episode, and then they're gone in the finale. God, I wonder how quick they're going to be able to turn the next part around.
I wonder, like, because it was pretty well known they've been working on this for like quite a while, and like
it delivered.
Yeah, and it delivered. So like, I'm sure they have assets and stuff like that they can reuse, especially on the CG front.
Good point.
But even then, like, it's I wouldn't be surprised if we're 2.5 years out from the next season.
Don't say that.
I know, I don't like it, but look at Jujutsu Kaisen.
But one thing I'll say,
they had the movie. They
did the movie. So did Demon Slayer, right? And it's all the same studio, so presumably it's the same resources. I'm like making a leap there. That may not be true, but they had movies. What's Attack on Titan been doing between parts 1 and 2? What was that, like a year, 14 months?
I think it was a year and change. Because I think it was January, and then now we're probably getting one like
March, April, something. Yeah. Anyway, I'm incredibly excited. This was an absurd. What a ride, man! I'm gonna definitely rewatch this before season 2. Was this be season 1, part 2, or will it be season 2 that launches?
I think it'd be season 2. Yeah, I don't think this is gonna be like a follow-up core. I think it's just gonna be like
season 1. Yeah, just 12 episodes. It's so short, but that's what you get.
I think it lived up to the hype, to say the least.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite.
Of course, you want more of a good thing, right? But 12 is just so short, but I feel like they really hit their stride in that back half. Now that's kind of obvious because an anime has so much stuff to establish, right, early on.
Yep.
But I was really, really digging it. Okay. And also, just for the listener, if like you want us to get into it more and like some of our favorite stuff about Chainsaw Man, like I said, it may or may not be covered in the top 5 anime. of the year, because even if it's not in the top 5, we also cover lots of honorable mentions, so it is mentioned in one way or another, but no spoilers.
For sure. Check it.
Okay, let's talk My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 13, a Mr. Compress backstory episode.
Dave, My Hero continues to surprise in more than one way. I never in a million years would have expected. I feel like we should have. We should have known, because all the other members of the League of Villains kind of got something.
They've run out of people to give backstory on.
Yeah, if there's one thing, it's funny because this is like a Mr. Compress backstory, but there's some really huge reveals about the lizard guy, Spinner.
Yeah, what are they again?
Well,
Help me out here.
I think like towards the end of the his monologue or whatever. I think, or before he presents himself to the action moment. There's a lot of talking, in typical My Hero fashion, but he makes a line before he jumps into it. He makes a line to Spinner of no, you gotta go with Shigaraki, because we all know you are the most passionate, you are his closest follower. Yeah. And it's what? How would we it's just one of those moments of
that's kind of odd, eh?
I never would have guessed that. So, and obviously he's the only one left, really. I guess potentially Dobby and the computer dude to make a getaway. I forget now. Did Dobby get away this episode?
I don't know. I hate that I don't know.
This is the problem with Christmas. This is the problem with the Christmas break.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these shows pause, and it's been a little bit since we've seen it. I know he kind of seemed to get the better of Shoto in their little in their showdown, but I don't know if he got away.
Yeah, but anyways, we know Shigaraki gets away. We know Spinner gets away. But so they kind of teed up this next arc or next season of this new head right-hand man to Shigaraki, and spoiler, All for One there. So it's I don't know. It was a good episode. I think we were saying a couple weeks ago, I think I was ready for this arc to be over, this run. It's been good. Yeah. It's been better than it has been, but I think it was becoming a little much. Yeah. And I think they ended it very gracefully, and they don't always end it gracefully, the end of these action arcs.
No, what took me by surprise was that Deku seemingly is already beginning to make some sort of contact with another holder of a One for All power. Because he mentions the 4th holder now, because he's got. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it only last season, in season 5, that he figured out Black Whip?
Yeah, it was a pivotal moment at the end of that first,
class battle arc.
The class battle arc, and then.
And now he's mastered float. And
yeah, so I want to ask that too. Because you and I, a big thing was when are we going to get further the Midoriya storyline and the One for All? Do you feel now it's we got too much of one thing?
Yeah, it's funny,
within
right?
A short amount of time.
You can't. Maybe you can't please fickle fans. I don't know what to tell you, but
yeah.
This is definitely not. I don't know. I don't want to dunk on the show, but hear me out, both audience and Grant, because we don't come here with the intent on dunking on anything. But I think that we've long said that the best parts of My Hero Academia are the ones that are kind of central to the One for All versus All for One plot. The history therein, right? The past, the origins, all that lore is very interesting. Obviously, Bakugo and Deku's relationship, All Might being involved, the Endeavor stuff, the big characters, right? And the actual plot moving forward. What is the villain actually doing? All of that is pretty interesting, but part of that lore, as we've learned last season, is that Deku's probably gonna eventually wield all the quirks, all the OG quirks of all the previous One for All holders, and they've kind of just piled up out of nowhere. He couldn't control Black Whip really at all until the very end of season 5, and now he had mentioned float, and now he can just fly while using Black Whip. And now he's making contact with the next one. And it's all happening mid-combat, kind of mid-central plot with the Shigaraki All for One stuff. So that's cool, because these are all the main threads of the story. But they're not being paced out very well, I feel.
Do you think we're now in a situation where we're running up on source material?
No, I don't think so. I can't.
No, you don't think so?
I could be wrong.
I feel like there's going to, I'm very thankful I haven't had any spoilers or anything like that, but with this ending, I would be shocked if there's not a huge tonal shift in the show.
Yeah.
Like, in direction. Like, because, like, I'm not exactly, like, doing, like, advanced math here, but, like, it's a hero society. Heroes have been running the show, and the world essentially has been devastated, right? And, like, they could do nothing about it. So I think I'm hoping there's gonna be some repercussions to a certain extent. Like, obviously, no one should be punished, but, like,
the show should change. They shouldn't go back to school and, like, do math.
So I'm wondering, like, I don't know. I am wondering if maybe they're not running out on source material, but I think what's next to come, maybe, it's kind of written this way for, Midoriya had to get these power-ups to continue forward, like, to make sense, like, with where, kind of what is happening, but...
It's certainly interesting. I remember, and I'm sure I'm going to get this wrong, but I remember us covering Season 5 last year, and I remember thinking, or doing the math, like, finding, like, a relatively safe thread of people talking about this, and, like, we're about the halfway point of where the manga currently is. In season 5? Yeah.
Okay.
And then the creator was like, I will be done the manga by end of 2022. And then, like, in October of 22, he's like, yeah, it turns out not so much.
Yeah, I remember.
So, I don't know. But yeah, like, they definitely are speedrunning the quirks a little bit. I'm not going to complain too much. Like, this is the stuff I'm interested in. And I am interested in, like, this now second internal conflict of, like, Tomura Shigaraki kind of being, like, usurped and a prisoner in his own body. Like, that's interesting stuff. That
I did like that. I think that was the highlight of the episode.
Yeah.
Because, like, Midoriya's whole thing is he sees someone in danger and, like, he just is overcome by, like, I need to save them. And of course he's going to see Shigaraki in a moment, like, prone like that. And he's going to, like, I need to save you.
It almost looked like Shigaraki wanted help, too.
Yeah.
There was, and yeah, I kind of wanted him to get help. You know what I mean? It was interesting. Like, that conflict is good for the audience. I think it's good for the show. This family stuff with the Dobby stuff, I truly never saw coming.
Over it. Like, I'm sure it's not going anywhere. Yeah, but, like, it just feels like it's distracting more. And I know they got to pad everything out. It's got to be a full show. Like, fuck, we always get into this goddamn cycle with My Hero. Like, I like it. I like all of it, but it's just, there's so much baggage to tell the fucking story. It's hard to sift through, even in a single episode sometimes, so
it's crazy because, like, I want to know more, but you're right. Like, you get stuck in a holding pattern with My Hero, and it's like, I don't want this arc to be over and go back to class. Yeah. You know what I want to...
I think class is over. I genuinely think class
is over. They're in first year. Like, you know what I mean? It's absurd.
Yeah.
Like, the show has so many strengths and so many weaknesses. Or maybe it's just that it has a lot of strengths, but the weaknesses it does have are so big. Mm-hmm. But I guess the TLDR version is, like, pacing is not its strong suit.
Yeah, but, historically, but I would say this has been a high point for pacing for the show.
No, I totally agree. But if someone out there has read the manga, like, tell us. What are we at? 50%? 75%?
Yeah. Like, don't fuck us here, but, like,
you know what I mean? Like, are you about to tell us we got 4 more seasons to go before we're caught up? Because I'm going to lose it.
Easy. Dave, oh, come on. I think this show is not going anywhere. I think we got lots and lots of My Hero left. And spin-offs. This show's going to reek of spin-offs at some point, I think.
Yeah. But, like, I don't want to sound like I'm dunking on it. Like, I liked the episode. This was a fun arc. I feel like it may have gone about 2 episodes too long, but that's fine. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see what happens next, but I will be not low-key. I will be high-key pissed if we just go back to, like, student co-ops. And, like, what's happening at the Endeavor Agency? Like, I don't want that shit. But, that's probably what's going to happen. Let's be real.
Well, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. I'll watch.
Okay, let's shift into some season finales here. Spy Family, episode 25. Spy Family, what a show. What an unexpected bit of a darling of 2022. Actually, you know what? Not my most unexpected of the whole year. I will cover that after the newsfeed. But what did you think of the finale, Grant?
It was good. It's the... Because, that's the thing. Like, there's been a lot of, like, not filler by any means, but, like, they've really been, like, tiptoeing their way to, the mission, right? Like, it's all been about, like, how to get to this point, and then you kind of get it. And it's to the show's, strength is like it's very good at shifting the tone like in a split second. It's comedy, boom, serious. Lloyd's having the showdown with Desmond or Donovan. Donovan, yeah. And like it's just I love the mental gymnastics of like because a lot of anime sometimes there's some struggle of like reading like what a character is thinking and saying. Plus we're dealing with the subtitles and this and that.
Yep.
And they like flawlessly have pulled this off all season, and especially in this scene. There's a lot of juggling of like what he's thinking and saying and the back and forth, and then fucking Damien's chiming in.
Totally agree.
Quite a bit. So it was I think it was just a very it was kind of like in a weird way it was a bit of a showpiece episode in dialogue. Like what they were saying, it's pretty standard fare and all that, like not groundbreaking by any means, but it was fun to watch. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think this show, okay, this is going to sound like a stretch, but just stick with me.
Sure. I think in years past on this podcast, we've talked about how like My Hero Academia has like some really good tone switching. And other shows are also really good at juggling that. Like, I mean, My Hero Academia is also great at juggling characters.
Yeah, I think characters would be what's best.
But Spy Family feels like it can tone switch very easy. You can get an Anya-only episode of her and the dog solving, like, a silly household crime.
Yeah.
And then you can get a whole episode, a tennis episode between Yor and...
Nightfall.
Nightfall, doing their thing. And then you get this, where he's like double agent status the whole way through. You got the inner monologue kicking. Like, it's very versatile. The show can really play to almost whatever it wants to. I think that's really hard to do. And I'm really curious. Like, I know it's popular, but like, I'm curious
it's huge.
Yeah, I know. When you start seeing like the merch and stuff like at random stores, like this is catching some steam. But I'm definitely curious on like how everybody else feels about it. Like your typical anime watcher who's here for like the Anya memes or whatever else it is, because they will go whole episodes without really having her involved all that much. But then they'll do that with Yor as well. Yep. But altogether, I would say a strong show, promising first couple cores. I will watch season 2.
Absolutely, and the movie. There's going to be a movie in season 2.
Yes, I saw it got announced.
I believe the movie. It's not that it's not canon, but it's just it's like a new story. It's just not adapted from the manga or anything. Okay. So it's going to be like a new story, but I'm not sure if it bridges. Like what is going to happen? Like that's the thing. So we're kind of unsure, but that's going to be dynamite. Seeing that on a theater. Come on.
Has your progeny seen any of Spy Family?
Yeah, she has.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she enjoys it. There's some stuff that like, it's nice because Spy Family is split up into like almost like episode, like it's a little episodic within the episode.
Yep.
So it's easy to kind of jump. Maybe this one not so much and that.
Yeah.
But like Anya, like.
Anya
Lance, like when an 11-year-old, like of course Anya lands, right? It's.
I was gonna say, will you take her to the movie? But it's tough because you don't really know what they're gonna do in it, right?
Yeah, well, maybe by the time the movie's out,
that's true. Anime movies take so long to get animated movies. I mean, in general,
she's at that age now. Like not necessarily anime associated, but like I threw on School of Rock for her this year. Which is cool. Debatably, like, it's one of my favorite movies. It was a huge movie for me growing up. I love Richard Linklater and Jack Black and all that.
Yeah.
And it was just like, we're probably like 2-3 years away from it. Yeah. But fuck it, we're putting it on.
So if I babysit, we should throw on The Exorcist, just jump in?
Have at it, see how you do.
Yeah.
She'll clock her way out of that room, my dear. I bet you. But no, it's one of those things. Like you give her a heads up. Hey, this is probably a little old for you, but let's just have fun and it, success. So I think Spy Family is a similar way. I can't remember what episode it was, but I kind of just like let it go, and there was something, and it would have been the episode where Yor kicks Lloyd in the face in the bar. They're kind of like reprofessing their love to each other, and she kind of like,
and they're drunk too, right?
Yeah, so that's weird.
You're right. It is.
Yeah, it is. It is weird, but
even movies like School of Rock,
mild,
and all that. Well, there's a lot of little things hidden for the parents, right? Like we were just. I watched Frozen for the first time. We'll talk about that later. But like they hide stuff, right? Like all those Disney movies or whatever movie it is, like they all hide stuff for the parents.
Enjoy it too. Yeah.
Anyway. Very strong first season from Spy Family. It did not disappoint.
Incredible OP. The opening and endings for both seasons are dynamite. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just gonna bump a chicken at least once a week. So.
Okay, let's talk about some news real quick. So this is sketchy. I need a good source on this, but I see the internet losing its mind. So I'm just going to join in. It looks like they're doing a new animated Avatar series coming in 2025.
I did see that.
But then people are like, oh wait, it might be fake news, and I'm like, but I saw it everywhere, and so I don't know. I'm not trying to spread propaganda. Give me a break. But I did see
nothing has been sourced yet.
Yeah,
and it has come from a non-historically accurate fan page. So
I don't know.
Those things.
The rumor is because they've done The Last Airbender, and then they did Korra, Legend of Korra, and she was a waterbender, I think.
I couldn't speak. I think,
or might have been fire. Anyway, the next Avatar I think would be Earth. I know you haven't watched it. I still recommend it, but yeah, if there's more Avatar coming, I'm game to watch it. Did you hear about Jeremy Renner?
Yeah, I did. Fuck, was it was it a snowblower accident or was
he was run over by a snowblower?
Shut up.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I mean,
I saw that he was airlifted out.
Airlifted out, critical but stable condition, but has had emergency surgery that went well, but is still in ICU.
Yikes.
First reports I saw were that he hurt his leg, and then others say his chest. So I have no idea, but I think I don't know if he does it on his social media or what. I don't know where he lives, but okay, he's apparently shared stories over the years, on social, showing him driving around the snowplow and the snowblowers, because the snow where he lives is really bad, I guess, just in their area.
Yeah. And
it looks like there's, there was some kind of accident. I don't think he was driving, but I also know that people, and again, when celebrity news happens like this, news just flies, right? Oh, this happened. It's because this happened, and all these allegations get made. So I don't know it's hard to sift through and know what's what here, but some people are saying that they're intentionally not touching the scene of where it happened because there might be impending libel action because the snowblower that hurt him, if he got stuck under it, they're supposed to have all these safety features that prevent these exact issues from happening.
Jesus.
So there could be legal repercussions as a result, but I think at the end of the day it matters that he's okay.
Yeah, seriously.
He's alive. I have no idea. It's so early, people don't know if it's life-altering damage or who knows. But that's a nightmare come to life.
Mm-hmm. Truly.
Yeah. Okay. In lighter tones, the search for the next Bond is on. I don't know about you, but it feels like the last Bond just came out.
Yeah, well, it's because Daniel Craig's out, so they gotta have it lined up for the next one, right?
Yeah, so I imagine it's because they got to get the guy, then the director, then a release schedule.
Is it back to a guy now? I was convinced they had the next Bond officially sorted.
No,
out.
you had okay.
I do forget her name, but
you had
I thought a woman was chosen.
When I said guy, I ment colloquially, they got to get the person first, then the director. But so here's where I'm at. Can I say spoilers for No Time to Die? The last Bond movie? So. It's been, 18 months?
Yeah.
Maybe a year. Anyway, so there's your spoiler warning. At the end of No Time to Die, they kill him, right? So I don't know what you saw. You knew that, right?
No, I did not, but I am good.
Wait, are you serious?
Dead serious.
Are you... Is that the one spoiler that, you're there's no way they killed him? They never killed Bond.
I'm actually surprised I haven't found that out earlier.
Holy shit. I'm sorry, man.
No, seriously, I'm good. Don't worry about it.
You don't care? You're not invested?
I am, but I'm 2 behind.
Oh god, I feel so bad.
No.
Well, okay, do you want me to explain the why people thought the successor was already figured out? Because it's kind of addressed in the movie. So in the movie, he's retired or is let go from the MI6 at one point or whatever. He's out of action for a bit, and they give his number to a girl. I forget her fucking name, and I should really know it. No Time to Die cast, because she's great in the film. Oh yes, Lashana Lynch.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
So they,
Fuck,
so
I didn't know
sh-
she was in that.
so she's 007 in the movie. But then like he returns and like I think the movie is sort of making a point of being like it's just a moniker, like anyone can be 007. Because
She's crazy because I thought that was established by now.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, all these movies, right? It's always James Bond. But her point is like it's just a number. Like I can take it. But then she gives it back at the end of the movie, and then he dies. So I think some people are like, oh, they're clearly going to go with her. And then, but all these rumors are just about more dudes. Daniel Craig had an interesting statement being like, I think the path is obvious. Like, find whoever you want as the successor, but don't force in. Like, he kind of threw shade, I think, at Star Wars or something. He's like, don't force in a diversity hire just for the sake of diversity. Like, the key is you should find better roles.
Right person. Yeah.
And you should create more jobs for, like, people that are, of diverse backgrounds to get. It shouldn't just be Bond. Like, there should just be more stories that celebrate diversity, which is an interesting take. So anyway, all of that to say, there's just rumors, this guy, that guy. I have only seen rumors about dudes, for what it's worth, but they are rumors. But the latest one is Aaron Taylor Johnson, that has already met with them.
After Tenet and his role in Tenet, I could 100% see him as Bond.
You know what I don't like? And this is like some very typical dickhead on the internet throwing shade about this choice, is his voice. It's just like, there you are here. You know what I mean? No, but do you know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you mean.
but like, listen to Daniel Craig be like, shaken or
on.
stirred, and he's like, do I look like I give a damn? Like, he's just so, in
more
it.
posh. Yeah.
And Aaron Taylor Johnson is like, I don't know, I don't quite reckon what is the difference. I'm not sure I can wrap me little head about that.
Well,
I don't know.
We need to contact the Broccoli's. I think we got our next Bond rating.
There it is.
Podcast. Holy shit.
But anyway, he was, you know what was good was, did you ever see that movie he was in? Who's the fashion guy who's directed a couple movies? Tom Ford? Yeah, he did that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Velvet.
Nope.
Saw it. Wow. This is great podcasting. God.
Yeah, I know. We're Nocturnal Animals.
Nocturnal Animals.
Wow, he made that movie for $22 million.
That was a weird movie.
I loved it. It was weird as hell, but Aaron Taylor Johnson plays the villain in it and is quite unhinged. And when I saw that performance, I was like, yeah, okay. It's like, this guy's capable of this. And of course, they put him as Quicksilver in the MCU and kill him in 20 minutes, but whatever.
Oh my god, I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, I know.
I like the Kick-Ass movies. Questionable, but
questionable, but he was fine. Anyway, so he's clearly a capable actor. I'm interested to see if that's him or who it actually ends up being. But yeah, I feel like Craig is going to kind of be the Bond of my generation. Like, do you have a Bond? You know how they say that?
Daniel Craig would be mine, I think.
Yeah.
I grew up watching the movies like a lot. I've probably seen just about every single one. They're always
got that
on
on
the Action
me.
Channel.
I definitely don't.
I like the Sean. I think they all have their strengths and weaknesses. Pierce Brosnan, I think, was just because we were so young for him.
Yeah, I was impressionable.
His are always kind of, top of mind. But I think, like, Casino Royale is hands down the best Bond movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just remember being like, the hate, because, the age we were when Casino Royale came out, and the fact that he was blonde. Like, people ate him alive for that. Oh my God. And they made the darkest, dankest, most badass Bond movie ever, in my opinion. I was like, this is different now. Like, the Bond you knew is gone. And, like, they just set such a tone. And then I really, truly love Skyfall.
Well, yeah, it's one of the great, truly one of the greats. Like, it's a modern classic, I think, for action movies and spy thrillers and all that. It's that's some good shit.
Dude, who's your Batman?
Christian Bale.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because there's the Batman...
Well, I do like Michael Keaton.
Well, this is the thing, right?
Yeah.
There's the actor you grow up with, and then the actor that you find when you know how to appreciate movies, right? Like, I grew up with Brosnan, and I, like, came online with Daniel Craig.
Sure, yeah.
And I probably grew up... It's going to sound ridiculous. I think I grew up with the one... How many movies did Clooney do? for Batman?
I
I think I might have only done one.
Yeah.
I grew up with that movie on repeat. And then I remember, the Christian Bale movies, and I was like, "Wait, this is different."
Yeah, I remember. I grew up with Batman and Batman Returns, like the Keaton movies. All watched those a lot. Those were always on.
Oh
TV.
no, you know what? I did watch a ton of those. Which one had Robin? Was that Clooney or Keaton?
No, that was Clooney.
Yeah, I watched that one a lot.
Chris, what was his name?
Yeah. Oh, they put nipples on the bat suit. I remember that.
Yeah.
Clooney always brings it up.
Okay.
Okay.
People that had Batfleck as their Batman. Yeah, Ben Affleck's my Batman.
Imagine being that unlucky.
Yeah.
Just with timing in life. Oh yeah, I can't wait to see these new Batman movies. But hey, it all comes back around. Imagine you get R-Pats.
R-Pats is a good one to have.
R-Pats is a really good one.
Yeah. But Batman is, kids of all ages love Batman, and that's a hard watch, I think, for younger kids to go into that.
How
I know
on earth did they get away with a PG-13 rating for that movie?
It's unreal, truly.
I remember
truly
who did
unreal.
that? Matt Reeves.
I remember
he said they were just arguing over seconds of movie, to get away from the R rating, and he just did barely enough. I cannot believe.
From what I recall, that was it was same thing with the Planet of the Apes movies.
Oh really?
I think the last one with Woody Harrelson.
I never saw any of them, eh?
Oh fuck, Dave!
I know you're big on them.
They're so good.
Yeah.
But especially 2 and 3. 1 is good, but 2 and 3 are something else.
Didn't he only do 2 and 3? Did he do 1?
No, he didn't do 1.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we know who you're a fan of. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of directors from humble beginnings, why don't you finish off the newsfeed?
So Rian Johnson is already writing his second sequel to Knives Out. So, when Netflix has got the bag, you got to get that shit written, I imagine. So.
Yeah, likely. And, speaking of Rian Johnson, you've been a fan of him since Looper, right?
Oh, fuck off. Awful movie. But I love Brett.
I think you said he was in your top 3 of all time.
Yeah, get out of here with that. To this day, I still don't understand. I love his work. I love his writing. There's something about that movie that just fucking irks me. I don't know why. It's so silly. It's a modern sci-fi movie, and I just dumped all over it.
I think I remember, giving it, in my head, a 6 out of 10, and then seeing how much you didn't like it, and I was like, well, I have to double down now. Clearly, I have to now say this movie is perfect. And I've been playing that tune forever, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. But, because this thing, too, he's been doing the circuit, eh? He's been doing a lot of interviews and stuff right now, obviously, for Glass Onion. And he was on Marin this week, and he essentially, I think he only has,
he's on Marin?
Yeah, he was. Great interview.
I'm going to jam that. Okay, we have to talk about Star Wars and Rian Johnson when you're done this.
And they talk about it, and I actually have a lot more respect for The Last Jedi after, what he had to say on the pod. But no, so the thing, Netflix only signed up for 2 movies for Knives Out.
Was the first one also a Netflix release?
No, it wasn't. So so essentially, because there's that $400 to $440 million deal, it was not. Everyone assumes it was just for Knives Out. It was for 2 Knives Out sequels, and then other projects of his. Right?
Interesting.
So after the second one, he could take any other, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do as many Knives Out as I need to, whatever story needs to be told or whatever at the time. I'll do them." So it's just, I think he landed on gold, right? He knows, he found a good format. People love murder mysteries. His love for Agatha Christie is so evident, especially in Glass Onion, which we'll get to. But
we both watched it. We're going to cover it in the second half of the show. But he got better from movie 1 to movie 2. Did you feel that?
I disagree.
Ooh, okay. We got to dig into that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I heard a little bit about the Rian Johnson thing, talking on the circuit about the experience doing Star Wars. And he kind of just said, he was given the freedom to do what he wanted, and he wanted to make an impact, and he wanted to tell his own story. I don't know, and interrupt any time, but my take is the more that comes out about this, right? And, the further in our rear view that the trilogy sequel gets, the more honest people will be about it, right?
Absolutely.
And the more information that comes to light, the more I feel we kind of have to blame the studio. And is it Kathleen Kennedy and those? Is that who I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
They really, truly don't seem to have had much of a plan.
Well, I think, and again, this is just my various readings, and there's been lots of accounts, and
no one can speak honestly, right? Like literally none of these directors can say what actually happened.
But I think the common story that we've seen from like various people is like even Kathleen Kennedy and not so much Rian Johnson, but J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
Even like Kathleen Kennedy is like the head of Lucas. Right?
Yeah.
Like she, like her, and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, who are like kind of coming up into that. Like even for her as the head of the Star Wars project, the studio above was going ahead. Like it was essentially when it came to these movies, they were reaching down and kind of changing a lot of things. So because you look at all the other things she has her hands on, and they are quite good. She has the right people. She's hiring the right people. She wants them kind of it blows my mind the shit talking that people do on Kathleen Kennedy, and like she's like Lucas.
Yeah, you know a lot more about this than I do. That's a good point.
Lucas hired her for a reason, and when he left, he's like, she's a part of the deal. Like she when everything was sold out, like she was brought on like with him. She was like, I'm pretty sure she was a part of like the lore team. Like when he'd be making something, and like they're the people like, no, Lucas, like you've done this, you've done that, like this is how you've kind of already like kind of wrote your way into a corner with this, like you have to kind of go in a different direction kind of thing. Like she knows the world, right? So everyone's like, oh yeah, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, like it's all Kathleen Kennedy's fault. It's like, well, I don't think it is. Like I think it was just the studio saw the movies as like the main money makers, and like they're in the theaters, they're big spectacles, and they can't help themselves. Like it's
you raise a good point. I think as fans and moviegoers and just fans of franchise, we often want a corpse, right? We want one person to look at and be like, this is your fault. How could you be so, I mean, in some cases, like you got David Weiss, Dan Benioff, like the Game of Thrones guys, and they quite literally had full creative control. HBO only wanted more Game of Thrones. It's like, okay, fine, you got your villains, be happy. Yep. But like a lot of the times, it's just the quote studio execs, right? Yep. There's no names. They're all invisible.
The nameless ghouls in the background.
And like this isn't a conspiracy. Like a big part of if you're interested in this kind of stuff is go look at the Sony leak that happened and look at these nameless, faceless executives, because it's not one, right? If it was one, you just get rid of that person. But dozens of them, like that Amazing Spider-Man 2 film that with Andrew Garfield, that turned out that way and bombed because of studio interference. The same can be said for the most recent, it was years ago, but the Fantastic Four movie. It was like the amount of stuff that happened from the interference that they forced just crap into the movie because they, ran focus groups or whatever it was.
Or they want to build like this legacy of their own of like, I fixed the movie or I did this and that.
Yeah.
It's gross, honestly.
But
you read it, it's very gross.
It's definitely not conducive to the creative process, and it definitely takes the art out of the artist's hands, right? Mm-hmm. All of that said, Last Jedi sucks. But anyway,
there are some great moments in that. There's
We
don't
forever
need
the
Last Jedi
optimist
right now.
I'm kidding.
So Avatar 2 has officially crossed $1.44 billion.
I don't give a fuck. All right.
You're fucking nuts. Whatever. I'm gonna go see it with Sam. You and Leanna can go do whatever you want. We're gonna go.
Is Leanna not into it?
I think she's just completely indifferent.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
We agree. No, I'm kidding. All jokes aside, I think my quote prediction was like, it won't be the first. Beat the first.
Sure.
I will secede that it's doing better than I thought.
Okay, already backpedaling.
No. I'm gonna keep my bet. I still don't think it does better than the first, but it is genuinely doing better than I thought. And it definitely doesn't beat the first when you adjust for inflation. But like,
no.
When people talked about Endgame dethroning Avatar, that was not adjusted for inflation either. So calm your jets. Yeah. Nothing is going to beat Avatar 1 when you adjust for inflation. No, especially after the last couple of years.
It was a titan.
But so, 1.44 is, and you were telling me before the pod some statistic. What was it?
Yeah. So of course, I didn't save the article, but there was a statistic that from the first weekend or the second weekend to the third weekend, there was a 0% loss in revenue, or like 0% loss in turnout,
which is so
from weekend to weekend. and they compared it to like everything else. Apparently, the only movie that even came close was No Way Home, and even it had like a 23% turnout loss from weekend to weekend in the same time frame, I think, or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. You ever see those horror stories of movies that drop? Like I think it was like Ant-Man 2 dropped something like 74% from weekend 1 to 2 or something absurd. But yeah, it's definitely got staying power. Like I don't know a single person who's seen it, and it's made $1.44 billion. And I know people in most of the social groups I know are going to see it. It's been the holidays, right?
Yeah, well, that's the key thing, right? Everyone's off, and it's kind of one of those movies where you can debatably take the kids to it, and everyone's off at school.
But it's so long, you got to budget the time. But the thing that they all agree on is, oh no, I'm going to see it. Like they just have to find the time. So that is what makes me think it might get close to the 2 billion mark.
It's but you know, this is also one of the ones like it's not leaving anytime soon.
No, this thing is going to fucking stay forever.
Yeah, like well, this will be in theaters till April, I think. Seriously, April.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
Because some of these shows, what is it, HBO? Like they have a deal. It's like 45 days in theater, then straight to streaming or something. I can't see them doing that with this.
No, it's a Disney product.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I wonder. Oh, I do wonder if they'll. Well, you got to.
Oh, maybe they put it. Yeah, who knows? Good point.
I don't know. Big Jim might have a say on that. He's not going to let them curb his right.
I gotta say, you know, most of my hate wasn't on James Cameron. Like,
no, never is.
It was on Avatar 1 and the zealots who defended how insane that movie was. And I still disagree a little bit, but whatever. That's not my point. My point is the press tour he did for Avatar 2, like watching him talk about movies, I was like, okay, this guy's pretty fucking cool.
He's a fucking gangster. I'm like, he's like literally the smartest person in the room, and he has no issue like reminding people like when he talks about his work and like, what he's done. But like he doesn't sound like an asshole about it. It's truly a superpower.
He just knows. There's this tightrope you have to walk, right? Where you have to know your value, but you can't overstate it, right? Like just because you have slightly higher value than someone else doesn't mean you treat them like shit, right? And you can equate value and measure that however you want. Let's say in James Cameron's instance, it's monetary value, right? But he told this story about arguing with a exec. Do you know what I'm going to say? He was arguing about the budgets for Avatar 2 and the sequels, and he goes, "You see this this entire headquarters we're staying in? I paid for this.
This parking lot that you parked in this morning, I built."
Yeah, the however many floors of this skyscraper that you're in, that's just from Avatar 1. That's not even Titanic.
Yeah, that's Big Jim money.
Yeah, that doesn't touch anything else I've made for you fucks. So you're gonna let me make the movie as long as I want. Yeah. And you're gonna let me make 4 of them at once. It's like, okay, yes, sir.
I've already built the studio they're gonna be shot in, so like sign it off.
Yeah, just big cojones on that guy.
And so finally, and this is news to me. So apparently, Dave, you threw this in the notes. Is this for like when it was Last of Us was supposed to be a film, not a series?
It looked like at one point they were going to do 2, and because there was a rights issue, one for movies and film, and then one for TV. And I think everyone, fans of the franchise at least, were more excited about the film because or not the film. I'm sorry, the TV show, because you think about. Good miniseries on HBO, as grimy as it gets. That's what I want to see. Mm-hmm. And the notes here is it was potential. He did not sign on, but they were going after director Sam Raimi of Spider-Man and most recently Doctor Strange 2. But execs wanted a, quote, particular kind of movie and asked Raimi to make it kind of bigger and sexier, to make it feel a little bit more like that movie everybody loved, World War Z.
Fuck, that didn't happen.
Yeah, no shit.
Cow.
So
actually, it did happen. It's called Uncharted.
Hey,
and, awful.
Good point.
But, did good business. So
yeah. Okay. That's it for the news feed. We can move right along here. I'm going to briefly talk about To Your Eternity season 2 episode 10 because I don't think you're caught up, right?
No, I've decided to take a couple week break on it. Just let it. I think I need a little bit of break from what I saw so far, and I'm gonna let the core run a little bit. And then I'll jump in 3-4 episodes, do a little bit of a binge.
Okay. Can I give you mild spoilers?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So here's I have good news and bad news here. Let's do the bad first. And the bad isn't really plot related. I think we've actually talked about it already on the show. They're doing this thing where there's black dots on the screen accompanied by a sound effect, like a high-pitched frequency. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that's stupid, and I hate it. That's the bad news.
Okay.
It's lazy, and I think it's stupid. But they kind of...
Sense?
What's that?
It's like supposed to be like a Spidey sense?
They explain it. I'll just say that. And it's like semi-palatable, the explanation.
It's coherent,
yeah,
at least?
Yeah. It's coherent. I still think it's stupid. Sure. But it does explain things a little bit. And I'll also say, and this is not a... How do I say this? There is a very brief, and I mean brief, time skip. We're not skipping 40 year or a decade, but there's this little arc that happens that is kind of moving things in a new direction, which is fresh. I think the show needs it. I don't know if that fixes the problem the show now has, but it is interesting to me. And like, you know, if we just consider the pacing of season 1 and the pacing of season 2, especially with the last episode or two in mind, like it's just ramping up. And if you're a manga reader and you know how this goes, I'd be really curious, how far are we into the manga at this point, like percentage-wise? Because I know the manga is finished, and I'm just be curious, like, these recent changes are really picking up steam, and I'm curious. Like, I by no means think season 2 is the last season. I'm just wondering, like, are there 3 more? Is there 1 more? Because the pacing is increasing.
Do you think at this rate it gets another pickup?
I have no idea. You know what, dude? That's a really, really good question. I truthfully don't know. I never see it on the top of r/anime.
No,
I never.
Not like it was.
And even the dedicated subreddit, it's not. I think it's doing like half the volume. And I think I told you, either off mic or on mic, I saw some dude be like, did they change writers or something? Because he didn't know it was a manga adaptation. Because the contrast between season 1 and season 2 is baffling.
Yeah.
It's pretty nuts. It's like if you've seen True Detective season 1, which is an all-time classic, and then you go to season 2, it's like, well, they asked the guy to, you know, he wrote this thing for like 3 years. It was lightning in a bottle. And then they were like, okay, write season 2, you have 6 months.
Do it again. 4th season, that comes out this year, actually.
They're doing a 4th?
Yeah, Jodie Foster.
Oh, that is one...
Yeah, dude.
That is one thing. That show really attracts talent.
Yeah. Apparently, it's set in Alaska.
Yeah, like, I don't know, that guy, assuming it's the same dude...
I think so, yeah.
I give him benefit of the doubt because it's very clear that there is really big talent there.
Sure.
It's just you can't, lightning doesn't really strike twice, and I don't know if you can top that first season ever. And I gotta say, that would really irk me if I were an artist, knowing like, oh, like, the best of this particular project is behind me. Like, I don't know if I would want to keep going.
Yeah, that's...
I don't want to sound kind of drab, but you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, I think to be a successful artist, you need to learn to separate from a bit of that. So
from critical success and blockbuster numbers and all that. That's that's a good point.
You would think they would take a healthy approach to it. You never know.
Yeah. So you started watching Andor.
Yeah.
But I've seen none of it, so don't go too heavy in spoilers. I just want to know, because I am going to watch this one.
It's a must-watch. I'll say that up top. It is an absolute must-watch. Leanne and I are 4 episodes in. I'm surprised it's 12 episodes.
Are they an hour or 30?
45.
Okay.
45 to a 50.
Right.
So far. Mm-hmm. And oh my god, Dave. The production value is, and to no one's surprise, it looks just like Rogue One. It's all the same people involved. Tony Gilroy and Dan Gilroy. It is stunning. And, it's weird because, I'm only watching it now. Like, it's only been in the past, a few days or whatever that I started watching it. And there's a lot of consensus outside of the Star Wars fandom of like, oh yeah, like, it's Star Wars, but like, it's not Star Wars. Like, it's, it's its own, like, spycraft story, and, it's doing its own thing, and just, with a coat of Star Wars paint. Those people are fucking morons, dude. Like, it is Star Wars, like, blood in, blood out, like, without a doubt. And people, like, trying to, like, separate it from, like, yeah, like, it's Star Wars, but, like, it's holy fuck. Like, get over it.
Are they mad there's no lightsabers or something?
Well, no, they're all like happy that there isn't, and they're like, yeah, they're wearing their suits, but like, you know, they're trying to tell a story like set in, you know, like fascist. People are trying to separate Andor from Star Wars. They're saying it's just its own thing. It's not really Star Wars, like it is, but it's not, and it oozes Star Wars. Like,
where does this fit in the timeline, Grant?
It's well, it's obviously pre-Rogue One. It's a couple of years before Rogue One.
Okay.
So it's before A New Hope. Maybe like say like 5-10 years before A New Hope.
Got you. Okay.
But anyway, so like it's funny to see all these. For me personally, because I've been reading all these like spoiler-free reviews, and like people kind of be like, you know, like if it wasn't like Star Wars related, this would be like a much better show. Like it didn't have all the baggage, and it's like, you guys are insane. It's truly a Star Wars show. The usage of color and sets, and I'm sure they're I don't think they're using like Jon Favreau's stuff either. You know, like that studio he built with
the Unreal Engine. Yeah,
like I don't think there's any of that. Like it's a lot of like built sets, you know, outdoor shots. Dave, my takeaway is there was a set piece they did in one of the first few episodes that blew my mind. It's like, this is fucking movie making, man. Like this is what genre, like fantasy and sci-fi stuff needs to like separate it from like kind of like the cookie cutter CG stuff. Like,
I think it's really never a bad thing. Like, it's funny because we didn't plan on talking about the Star Wars movies when the Newsfeed happened, but that just sort of organically came up. But I remember talking to you, and I remember hearing this 100 times from everyone I knew about like The Mandalorian is what I was waiting for when like more Star Wars came. Yep. And everyone was kind of, you know, let out a bit of hot air with the new trilogy, and like then The Mandalorian came and kind of saved the day. Does this make you feel like it's up there in quality? Does it compete with The Mandalorian?
I think it's on par.
That's a big deal. Par.
So the thing is, I think where The Mandalorian is very serious. Like it's more akin to like Dave Filoni and like the Clone Wars and the Rebel stuff, which I'm a huge fan of, and it's probably like my favorite kind of, I guess, ecosystem within the timeline. You know, like those characters and whatnot. But Andor does a thing where, you know, like Mandalorian kind of comes off like a spaghetti western, like, because again they're
sure.
You know, they're trying to make it a certain way, but it still fits into like the overall, you know, genre of the like the overall Star Wars picture. But like it's still kind of, you know, the galaxy is so big, not everything plays out the exact same way,
right?
And I think Andor does that as well. You know, it's still clearly Star Wars, like, you know, it oozes Star Wars, like, and not just like the costumes, like the way they speak, the gadgets, and how like they comfortably like talk, like, you know, a mild spoiler. There's a scene in the most recent episode where Andor's talking to this guy. He's a bit of like a tech guy, and you're not like overburdened with like jargon in like you would like in any other type of show. They do it in the Star Wars way of like, yeah, like people watching, like they call this thing a navigator. People can put it together, you know, like they know what that means, and like he gets into like, it's just, I don't know, it's so smartly written, and it kind of, it's very respectful to the audience the way The Mandalorian is, and I think that's what comes across as genuine, right? People don't like being called dumb when they've sometimes know the lore a little more and kind of the comings and goings of some characters, and, you know, kind of how they act on this planet, and I don't know, it's just fun, like the way they like they're really getting into like the hierarchy of the lower like middle management of the Empire, which is funny because that was like a big thing in like Rebels and in Rebels too. Like there's obviously some like bigger characters, but it's all the rat race at the lower level of trying to get to that point. And it's cool to see that in live action. You know, kind of like the head butting and this and that. And like I said, I'm only 4 episodes in, and I'm completely blown away. It's fucking beautiful. Like, you know, it's exciting. Even. Yeah, if you're a Star Wars fan, you owe it to yourself to watch Andor.
No, it's absolutely,
it's like an absolute, because it's supposed to be 3 seasons, and it's supposed to be a genuine handoff straight into Rogue One.
Oh,
the
that's
way
cool.
Rogue One was a handoff right into A New Hope.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So they're really trying to, you know, do it.
Cool.
And I love like because you know Tony Gilroy was on Marin as well a couple weeks back, a couple weeks before Christmas, and you know Marin's like, I'm not a Star Wars guy, And Tony Gilroy was like, okay, but like it's Star Wars, so like it's it's for those people, but like like there's people that aren't, like they can enjoy it, and it's I don't know, I like to see that Star Wars is getting some reputable stuff.
As if I don't know how I missed those Marin episodes. I remember being like, I love him as an interviewer, and just so often I don't know any of the guests, and I'm like, what's going on? But okay, I'll take another look.
Yeah, the Gilroy one too. Like, there's not much Andor talk. There's a little bit, but it's mainly about like his early days. But that's good stuff.
Okay, let's briefly talk about Knives Out, Glass Onion before we get to an end on the Q&A, which you can, by the way, sign up for the Q&A on our Instagram on Mondays if you follow us at Part-Time Otaku Podcast. So there's that. We run the Q&A in our stories. But first, Knives Out. So I thought, my take was, I see some improvement from Rian Johnson. He just seems a little bit more comfortable with his writing and his direction. I also enjoyed the new tone. I didn't love every choice in the movie. I did like Ed Norton.
Yeah.
And it was really good to see him in a big movie like this, like fucking owning the screen. Like, I love that he went big. I just don't see that at Ed Norton often. But I wonder, how much do you disagree with all that?
It's not that I don't disagree. It's just, the maybe it was no.
I
I'm just trying to,
The Last Jedi. So like,
no. Like, I think the problem with this new movie is I found it a little too open. It was a little spacey, and even then, like it was also like a false sense of like freedom on the island. Like, it was just like a couple. It was like a couple sets within. I think the success of the first one is, it's all sets, but it's like within a house.
You're stuck.
Easy.
Yeah.
You're stuck, but like each room has a distinctive thing, and there's kind of that feel here, but it's the idea of like the openness and with the closeness too. It felt like it kind of opposing visually in a couple instances. The other problem is too, like right off the bat, like both the end, like, and we're not like trying to big brain it or whatever, but like every moment along the way, we're like, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Like, there was no genuine surprise for us. Yeah, fucking instantly.
Wow.
And it really ruined. It kind of ruined like the end result. It was kind of like, oh, that was like, and Leanna too. She's like, was the first one that goofy? And I'm like, no, but
I'll
give you. They're trying to make it goofy. I think they're trying to make it goofy because like it's all these. They're taking a swing at like big social media and celebrity personalities, right? So I think that it comes with the territory, but it's if you're not like super clicked into that, it does kind of come off as like kind of fucking silly.
No, so I completely agree with you there. Okay, so two things. I didn't catch the twists. I don't know if I was sober watching it or if that had anything to do with it. But, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. So I wasn't at my sharpest. But I will agree that everyone and everything was bigger. Yeah. Sometimes that's good for a sequel. Sometimes it's not. I like Dave Bautista. I liked a lot of the choices they made in casting. But it did feel like now that you say it, I will admit, it felt like probably the direction for a lot of actors was bigger. You know what I mean? Like,
go big.
Loud, bigger, performative. Like, don't leave room for nuance here. You know what I mean? Like, I want you to sing the fucking words is kind of feel like what the direction was. Everyone did really well with that. I thought Ed Norton excelled, actually.
I thought Kate Hudson was great. I've always she's one of those actresses that like we kind of grew up with, all those rom-coms. She was in like every fucking movie, like every other month she was in a new movie, and I feel like I haven't seen her in years.
What about Craig's accent? Where do you stand on that?
Did you find it get a little schlockier this time around?
I felt it was different for sure.
I do declare.
But again, like that's like the bigger like that feels like direction when everyone in the movie is going big. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it kind of makes it feel like so everyone's meant to sing their lines. Like
the thing I did like is they really hit home like how depressed he was in the beginning and how he needed a challenge, and there was genuine excitement for him to be in the thick of it again, and I think that was a part of his performance. So I think playing it that way with that accent really kind of like
I'll give you that,
makes it a little cartoony. But like I said, I did like the movie. I'm probably gonna watch it again later down the road, but it was it wasn't the first one in my opinion, which I think was not a modern classic by any means, but that was and I think Keith Stanfield, who was in the first movie, was just like awesome. He's great in everything he does. So to have him here, to have like a. And obviously he did have a... Yeah, I don't want to get
well, wait, maybe we can split the difference here. Tell me this. Do you agree with this statement? Better or for worse, rather, Rian Johnson was feeling himself more in this movie. For better or worse? Was he like...
Better, I guess, yeah.
No, but I mean, like, just do you feel like he was taking more swings?
I don't really think there was swings in this, though.
Interesting. Okay. So
I think it was a very safe movie.
Oh wow! See, I disagree, but that's okay. Well, we're going long. We this could be a whole pod.
I did like it, and I recommend people watch it.
Will you watch a third?
100%.
Okay.
Murder mystery.
On that. There you go. See,
mystery.
We can always split the difference. Let's end on the Q&A. We've got a few, but we're only going to have time for one. We have like a bit of a bank of questions for when we don't have time and whatnot, so we will get to your question. If it's not answered this week, just chill. But this is like from like our favorite fan, and it's a fantastic question. So how can we not answer this?
Shout out Abenak.
From our homie Abenak, what a great question. First, she says, "Hope you guys had a great holiday season." I mean, no one says that to me. Not even all my work colleagues that haven't seen me in weeks. Here's a combo question: which anime do you think has the worst filler episodes, and which has the best filler in terms of still semi-plot related and actually enjoyable? Also, is there a particular anime filler episode that is the worst one you can remember? Do you want to start us off, or do you want me to go?
I can go. Which one? The first question or the second question?
Go to the first, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So, worst filler... I remember when Leanna was watching the original run of Naruto. The maniac that she did the full run, filler and all. And there was a couple, like I'd be in and out. I stuck with her with Shippuden so far, but in the original Naruto, there's a couple filler episodes. There's like is this like really pushing towards like him being like the greatest ninja? And she's like, oh no, this is like them running. It's always the fucking bathhouse episodes, or it's like they're going on a silly errand for like a random old lady or something like that, where it literally filler to the umpteenth definition.
Right.
It's just I don't love that stuff, but yeah.
Okay, I have two for worst. One, I think most people, well, maybe they won't agree on it, but I haven't got far into it. But I think if your show has guides on YouTube with millions of views on how to skip filler, you're probably not doing it right. So One Piece, that's a shot at you. Of the stuff I actually watch frequently, My Hero Academia, like, you can ditch 45% of that show.
Yeah.
And not miss too much, I think. And I know that we've just been a little critical of My Hero this week, but like we're still watching, we still enjoy it, but you also got to be real sometimes. Best, and this goes, I think, for both the next question and this question, because she asks, is there a particular anime filler episode that is the worst one you can remember? Okay, so I drew a blank, so I'm going to give you my best filler episode, and what I think has some of the best filler episodes in general. And it's funny because its original run had some of the worst filler, and I think they really learned from that. Dragon Ball Super is not only much lighter than the original DBZ run, but it actually has some fun filler shit that is like huge winks to the audience, very self-aware. And my favorite episode is a baseball episode, which of course other shows have done, but like I loved it. I thought it was so fun. I was laughing out loud. I was like excited to go to the subreddit to watch other people talk about it. It united the fandom. It was a worthless episode that did nothing for the narrative, but like everyone was stoked. You know what I mean? And it bought them some time. I don't know. I was super down with that one, so I'll say Dragon Ball Super for best.
I think for best, and the thing is, I'm not sure if it's filler or if it like was written right into the manga, and it's kind of like it's more of a transitional episode. But I'm really blanking on a good filler episode. But it's the baseball episode of Jujutsu Kaisen. That like is some of the funniest stuff they've done in that show. But worse, and I'm sure this is gonna be up there for you when I say it. It was last season of My Hero Academia. It was it wasn't necessarily like a beach episode, but like there was like a mission with Froppy.
Oh shit, you're right.
And like I remember I could like watching the episode and like looking over to Leanna every 2 minutes and be like, oh my god, Dave's gonna hate this. Oh my god, Dave's gonna hate this. Oh my god, I hate this. Like yeah. I think it was like to set up a power up for like Froppy or someone, like learn a lesson. It was like oh, you know what it was? It was a filler episode tie-in to the movie coming out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Worthless.
Did not love that.
Worthless.
So, yeah.
Well put. If you're listening to this and you're like shouting at your phone or whatever you're listening to this on with like really bad offenders of filler that we haven't mentioned, please feel free to tell us.
Yeah.
And we'll give it some airtime because I'm curious. Because I saw this question come in. I was like, shit, I bet there's so many candidates and I can only think of these two.
Endless amounts of candidates would be my guess.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can end there.
Yeah.
God, what a crazy end to Psycho season, Grant. We made it.
We did it.
Next week we'll be back with the post show. I think it's probably safe to say same airing schedule. We'll be here on Wednesdays with the post show. I mean, maybe
a whole batch of new shows.
Couple of these might stick around for a little bit before they go off the air, but you know, we mentioned a bunch: Finland Saga, Tokyo Revengers, Nier Automata, Trigun, Last of Us, blah blah, Bad Batch. We're going to talk about all this stuff over the next, coming weeks and months, and we're super excited for that. If you just joined us in Psycho season and you haven't listened to the post show, the origin of that is like we started this podcast to talk about Attack on Titan, and then after we wrapped that podcast up, we would talk about everything else we were watching, and then we were like, why don't we just record this? So there's your 30-second recap that you would find on YouTube. I think that's it. Like I said, follow us on Instagram at Part-Time Otaku Podcast. The Q&As happen there on Mondays. I think that's about it for the third time. Grant, say the thing.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.